We seen instead over the past 29 days the same typical European scenario of pressure, raising the stakes and ultimately deception.
Resuming unilateral sanctions on Iran and applying maximum pressure is the main reason for the various difficulties and challenges. A few months ago, the United States and Israel brazenly carried out a military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, leading to further complications in the Iran nuclear issue.
We hoped that our European colleagues and the United States would come to their senses and choose the path of diplomacy and dialogue instead of their crude blackmail, which can only spur escalation in the region. What have we seen instead over the past 29 days? The same typical European scenario of pressure, raising the stakes and ultimately deception.
When submitting the Sochi-mentioned notification, the United Kingdom, France and Germany assured everyone that they were ready to abandon their escalation course if Iran complied with the conditions they set. They then, I remind you, mentioned 3 points: resuming interaction with the IAEA, informing about the status of enriched uranium stocks, and returning to negotiations with the United States. Iran, in this context, has shown itself to be a responsible player, aiming for a constructive resolution of this situation, despite it being entirely provoked by the hypocritical course of Western countries. No matter what Tehran does, Western countries issue new ultimatums.
Colleagues, this is not diplomacy, this is deception and theater of the absurd.
Resuming unilateral sanctions on Iran and applying maximum pressure is the main reason for the various difficulties and challenges. A few months ago, the United States and Israel brazenly carried out a military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, leading to further complications in the Iran nuclear issue. 10 years later, the Iran nuclear issue is once again at a critical juncture today. The O3 insists on initiating the rapid reinstatement of sanctions mechanism. Meanwhile, Iran recently reached an agreement with the International Atomic Energy Agency to resume cooperation. During the contact with O3, full sincerity was shown, and positive signals were repeatedly sent about the willingness to resume talks with the United States. It can be said that diplomatic means have not been exhausted, and there is still hope for a peaceful resolution. In this situation, the draft resolution proposed by China and Russia extends the technical aspects of Resolution 2231 by 6 months, encouraging Iran to continue diplomatic efforts with the International Atomic Energy Agency to create conditions for a political solution. China calls on all Security Council members to vote in favor of the draft resolution, choosing a technical extension rather than reinstating sanctions. Choose dialogue and negotiation, not division and confrontation. Choose to ease the situation, not to escalate tensions.
The United States supports the case France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, the E3, made for Iran's significant and continuing non-performance of its nuclear commitments. And we support the re-imposition of pre-2015 UN sanctions on Iran in accordance with the process laid out in Resolution 2231. The reimposition of these measures, which will go into effect the evening of September 27th, is not arbitrary. Those measures are narrowly scoped to address the threat posed by Iran's nuclear, missile, and conventional arms programs and support for terrorism. And snapback of these measures does not preclude removal through diplomacy, but at this stage, there is no basis for changing course. Despite suggestions to the contrary, Iran has still failed to address E3 concerns regarding its highly enriched uranium stockpile, compliance with its International Atomic Energy Agency obligations, and resumption of direct diplomacy with the United States. We are pleased that the Council rejected this last-ditch effort by the Russian Federation and China to call into question these facts and suggest that an extension would be warranted. The Russian Federation-China text is a hollow effort to relieve Iran of any accountability for its continued significant non-performance of its nuclear commitments, and all without requiring tangible diplomatic progress.
We regret that some colleagues in the Security Council did not find the courage and wisdom to support our project. Their abstention indicates, at the very least, doubts about the destructive line pursued by the United States, the United Kingdom, and France, aimed at ultimately dismantling the nuclear deal and putting an end to the diplomatic path of resolving the crisis around it. However, one way or another, by their voting, they become its accomplices.
I should thank China and Russia for tabling this resolution and for all the efforts they made throughout the process of informal negotiations with other parties concerned. No country's nuclear program has ever been subjected to such rigorous inspections. Yet, in May 2018, the United States unilaterally withdrew from the JCPOA in clear violation of Resolution 2231 and international law and began bullying other governments to follow suit. It presented no reason, no justification. Yet, Iran remained fully compliant, based on European promises that their compensatory measures would protect the fundamental bargain of the accord. For Iran to agree to voluntary restrictions in exchange for sanctions lifting and other tangible economic dividends for the Iranian people. After more than a year of patience, and after the E3 made clear that it either would not or could not honor any of its promises, Iran was compelled to adopt remedial measures and reduced its commitments in accordance with its rights recognized under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Iran's measures were lawful, gradual, and fully consistent with its rights under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and Resolution 2231. This sordid mess did not come about overnight. Both the E3 and the United States have consistently misrepresented Iran's peaceful nuclear program. In doing so, they have been parroting the Israeli regime's baseless allegations. This is doubly heinous as the Israeli regime, as the occupying genocidal regime, is the only possessor of nuclear weapons in our region. The double standards at play are appalling and painfully obvious for the world to witness.